Good. Okay, so I'm here with Karim Rashid. Karim,
Hi, Paul.
well, I love you, man.
How are you?
Love you,
Good?
man.
All good.
Love you, man. Karen's is nice enough to to answer a few questions for us. I think most of you are going to be really interested in the answers to some of these questions. Basic question, like what does good design mean to you today?
You know, good design is the definition I find for me is constantly changing. You know, there's a time when I thought good design was something that, let's say, had a real impact on everyday life and everybody. And then it sort of shifted a little bit over to that it's more about doing something original, because I'm seeing less and less original. And the fact is we're all capable of an original act, but it's amazing how few things are original. You can even see in this award program tonight, there's a lot of work that's blurring. You know, the trend is everybody is sort of doing very safe, very similar things. So if you combine that with the definition, let's say the academic definition of what good design is. Good design should provide you a seamless function, something that just works seamlessly in everyday life with you, right? So if it's semantic, you understand how something's turned on, you understand how something works. It should provide comfort, obviously. It should be, let's say, not an obstacle in your life, but more of a sort of a rapture of something that makes you enjoy your life even more. Because we go very attached to things. Right? And humanity has this feeling like the physical world, we want to be attached to it. Even now, the definition, I think, is coming back to that because we become so digital and we're becoming so virtual that the physicality is becoming even more important to us, is sort of being elevated. Someone told me tonight, you know, that there's a boom in the vinyl industry, right?
Yeah.
For the last 10 years. Something like now is $60 billion business around the world. There's a revival in Azure was saying that their physical magazine sales are doing this.
Wow.
So it's like a revival to actually picking up paper again, right?
Yeah.
So you could argue that design is about making a better experience.
But actually the label good design is actually something that would actually be invisible to your experience, right? Because everything is integrated. You don't think, oh, that's a good design. You just enjoy it, you interact with it.
Yeah. Well, you know, there was an academic named Peter Dormer, taught at RCA years ago, wrote many books on design. And one book he spoke a lot about below the line design and above the line design.
Oh, interesting.
So above the line is something that we all have: the phone in our hand, the eyeglasses, the shoe, the chair, right? And those things we know are design. But the below the line is all those things out there that we don't even think are designed, like the cockpit of an airplane. If I got the job to do a cockpit of an airplane tomorrow, it's sort of a job that's 98% selfless, because it's not about me at all, right? And you have to make that thing work perfectly. So, but people, when they get on the plane, they don't think about the below the line design. They just expect that it works seamlessly, like you're talking about. Right? But then when they get in the chair and they feel that it's a bit uncomfortable or something, they become aware of the above the line design, whether it was good or not.
Interesting way of putting it.
Yeah.
Hey, this one.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I like it.
I like the way your career has evolved that way.
Well, you know why my career's evolved, Paul?
How?
Because I have something to say. What I realized about the design profession, people have nothing to say.
Vocal.
But I'm talking about architects, designers, you know, they sit up there and they talk about their projects. And you know what? You can read about the projects online. That's not what you want to hear when someone comes to lecture, right? You want to hear like their human experiences.
Yeah, I want to be inspired.
You want to be inspired.
Yeah, for sure.
The first thing I always tried to instill was passion, right? To become really obsessed and passionate about what you're doing. If you're passionate, I have an expression: dive in the deep end when you start a project. So you go deep. You go as far as you can. You take the project as extreme as you can. You learn everything about the history of that manufacturing process or that material or that social behavior, and you go deep and really push and explore, you know? So that in a way is the way to step back and not see an object for its typology, but to think about that thing or that object as the experience people will have with it, you know?
Wow.
You know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
So, you know, a good example is you say, your project today is you're going to design a chair made out of plywood, no screws. No, this is a Bauhaus project, by the way, going way back.
Interesting.
You have a 4 foot by 4 foot piece of plywood, and you have to make a chair that works with no screws, glue, or any contact, right? So you just have to cut the ply and make it right? This is a project that's existed for 100 years. Well, that kind of project, right, is how can I say, it's the impetus for thinking about really pushing the boundary of what you can do within the context and the let's say, restraints
Out of limitations.
and limitations.
Yeah, I like that.
And you always say there's a sort of a proverb that goes way back, but sort of like make limitations opportunities. So you really don't think of yourself as being limited. Think about what's the potential here.
I would add on that I think with the students that I've worked with, they're not going deep enough. It's so superficial. Like, you need to understand the history of design and art in order to move forward. Like, how do you build on that?
Of course.
Like, I would make all foundation years history of art and design.
We got to go deep and push some boundaries.
And of course, if there's no imagination, what about the influence of AI today? Like, if humans don't get involved in creating the future.
AI is far more imaginative than any human being. That's for sure. It's superseded us. Already, it's superseded us. If you want to talk about AI for a second, I realized what my role is now.
Tell me.
Because I have such knowledge about how to put something into the world in production like you do, right? I can look at an image immediately and feel whether that will have value in the world. Whether I can make it, what type of material, what kind of production method, what kind of market, how people would use it. So imagery is not enough for me, right? So you can look at thousands of images. So I realize I'm becoming like a sort of, how can I say, a cultural editor. I'm editing.
So this is about critical thinking though too, and this is the kind of thing we have to teach students.
Yeah.
It's all about how we can bring that human element to the future.
Yeah.
And imagination is like how we face the future, right?
How we face the future. And how also imagery becomes part of the 3D physical world. It's just imagery. So it all looks seductive and absolutely beautiful, right?
Of course.
But walk around the world and where is that seductive, beautiful stuff? Maybe it'll happen. Maybe
it will happen eventually, I think.
But right now, it's like, how do you go from that image and you actually have something that really touches people's lives? So maybe that's going to only be another decade.
Maybe.
Right? Yeah.
Because with the supercomputing that they're coming up with, maybe we won't have this additive printing technique, but maybe something on a molecular level, which will actually construct things like just from imagination.
Yeah. Oh, that's inevitable. That's coming.
I think it is coming.
That will come. Because you never get too perfect. How do you get there? Everything. I don't know where I got this from, either genetic or however, but everything I look at, I realize looks like it could be improved.
Oh, I totally agree with that.
You know that feeling?
Yeah.
And it's a frustrating feeling, Yeah. So those mistakes, you go, okay, I'm not going to do that. Like, for example, little samples, you're going to take the shower, turn the shower on, but you're going to get wet when you turn it on, right?
Of course, yeah.
So it's so simple, right? Here's where the
location
office, and that's where the shower is, right? I mention these things so many times in interior design lectures and stuff. These like little things that you think by now we would have resolved all these problems.
Okay, I would call those the pain points of bad design, right?
Yeah.
How to address that? I think pain points are a great way to have a methodology about design, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just to keep improving that.
Yeah. So the first thing you can do to be inspired is to say, oh, how can I make this better? How can I make that work? It's sort of an easy point of entry. If you don't know how else to be inspired, right? You just look for fault, look for problems.
And there's a million of them.
I'm in a brand new condo in New York, done by very well-known architects, right? And the front door and the cupboard door hit each other every time. It's like, because when the plan was drawn, nobody took the time to really study the plan. This is where AI prevails. I'm doing a condominium now. And I took the floor plan of 10 apartments, and I looked at 20, 30 reconfigurations of it until I found the perfect thing. So this is where the software and these technologies and the tools can make a better world.
Yeah, and I think in the old days we'd have to build models and just keep refining the.
Yeah, and usually you wouldn't have the time.
But we don't have time for that, or the budget, right?
No.
So I think the virtual side of design now too can improve things immensely and speed things up.
Yeah. Like, how can you make these mistakes? How can you go to production with these mistakes?
Maybe these designers are just trying to look for differentiation because just to get recognized. Because there's such a ubiquity.
Yeah, but you owned a company. The responsibility is you're going to put that thing on the market. right?
Absolutely.
And you're going to want to sell it, and you're going to sell high volume, especially if you're doing something like injection.
Of course.
So that you better
Get it right.
Better get it right. There's a story about the O chair that I don't even know, Paul, if you remember this or not.
Oh, yeah, I might.
We were in Buffalo in the factory, and the tool was about to be cut on an EDM machine, right? And to cut the tool, the cost of the tool was what? It's about $100,000 at that
Oh, yeah, it was like serious money.
like about 100,000. And I looked around the factory, so I had them sit in, we had the wood, CNC
I
wood.
remember that,
And
yeah.
I had them sit in it, and I realized the chair's too narrow. So I said to Paul, we gotta widen the chair. And he said, no way, we can't do it now. They're ready to cut the tool. I said, we have to widen the chair. And at that time, to quilt a 3D shape was really complicated,
Oh, yeah.
you know? But we did it. And I remember you complaining. He was saying something like, that's going to cost us another $15,000. I'm like, well, we'll probably sell, we'll make it up in sales.
And we did.
Yeah, we did. And I promised you, but we widened it just for the size of the people. And that chair until today is very successful because it's generous and it's flexible and it's super comfortable. All those factors that went in a chair, I wish I did that in every project. Everything worked so well. Everything, down to even the price point, everything, the material, everything. Hence, it was successful.
That was a great item.
You know,
What about the...
it's hard to do a successful.
How about-
hard to do a successful product.
How about the
you want to talk about Garbo? I knew you were going to
How
talk
about the
about.
Garbo can?
Let him ask another question. Let's skip the Garbo.
No, I love the Garbo because it's so iconic.
I know. Well, there was a simple trick in the Garbo pen.
Yeah.
When you have injection molding and you have the sprue going in and you're going to inject, if you make a symmetrical object, the plastic flows at the same speed. Number one. Number two is polymer doesn't want a straight line. So if you make a shape that's soft, right, the polymer moves, which means then the cycle time for the tool goes faster, you know? And you have less defective parts, et cetera, et cetera. So these are things that most industrial designers today have no idea about because they're making a shape on the computer, right? The only reason I knew this stuff, frankly, was I was obsessed with this machinery and what machinery can do and the opportunity we can do. So I learned about injection molding because I designed a bunch of telephones for Mitel way back in the day. Remember with, Scott Gibson and that whole crew?
Sure.
Yeah. So I was.
We had mold flow analysis on the Garbo can too.
Yeah.
But I think it was developed by Penn State, and we could actually see
it. Yeah, see how the
flow of it.
plastic would flow.
But that was a perfect combination of the technology and the design, the minimalism of it,
Yeah.
the price point, the distribution, the design,
Everything
your
about
name,
everything.
the mold.
I had no name at that time. So
No, you did. You were emerging.
there was another thing. The Garbo inside, it was at the bottom was a double wall.
Yep.
That was the patent. That was the trick, because the round bottom allowed that if you, let's say you throw a cup of coffee in there, it would gather in the center all the time. So it was super easy to clean.
No, but
and
there
at
was
that time, all the garbage cans were had a. You know?
Also, we had a collar at the bottom.
And when we had the collar at the bottom.
When it fit into the round bottom, they wouldn't stick together.
They wouldn't stick to ship them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That was huge.
Yeah, that was
Because if
huge.
you had them go into the store and they couldn't get them apart.
See, that's what I was saying. When we were working together on those things, and the knowledge I worked also with a few before that, was the things that allowed you to inform form. They made you do the project, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it wasn't form for the sake of form, it was the other way around. Every part of the form had provided a utility, right? All of that.
That's why it's so successful.
And even the scoop at the top. So you put your hands
scoop,
here, but you don't touch the garbage.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't even realize this. This is the interesting thing about products. When you look at something and go, that's good design or that's bad design, back to the first question, a lot of times we look at something and we really like it, but we don't really know why. And this subconscious reads those details. So the subconscious sees, two handles to pick up. The subconscious is saying, but my hands won't go and touch the garbage. I look and say, but easy to clean. But most people just, it's nice color.
But on the other side of it, though, when they use something that's not well designed and they can't clean the bottom and everything, they immediately know it's bad design. So with their experience,
they know what bad design is.
Yeah, they do. They know what bad design is because they experience it.
And then it was like they were feeding horses. Horse feeders. Remember that?
Yeah.
With the garbage. Anyway,
there's a lot of fun.
We need to make another product like that again.
Yeah.
Right?
Excellent idea.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
I think we're done.
Yeah, I think an outfit.
I go join the party now. Thanks for having after.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for
Pleasure,
being
Paul. Always
thanks
great.
for being
Always
my
great.
friend, my
Always
colleague.
great to see you. Are you kidding? You supported me back in the day. How many years have we known each other? Too many years.
Yeah.
I think more than 40. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Karim.